Alright everybody, this will be a quicker one. Now what I'd like to talk to you about are divs versus spans. Divs versus spans. You've already seen me use divs. You've already used divs on your own. Divs, well, div is short for division. Division. All it is an empty box, which can be used to group a division of your site. Such as you can put all of your main content into a div. You could put all of your footer content into a div. You could put a specific gallery of images into a div. You could put your intro section into a div. Okay? Divs are just empty boxes which we can use to group content on our site. But there are also things called spans. And spans are another way we can divide content in our site. Okay? Divs are used to contain other elements, whole other elements. As you can see here, I have a div which contains an H1 and two paragraphs, 1 and 2. So this div contains 3 whole HTML elements. Okay? Put another way, this div is a big old box which contains 1, 2, 3 smaller boxes. Big box, 1, 2, 3 smaller boxes. Okay? We talked about in the last video that divs are naturally block elements. I'm not going to change any display properties here. So we have one block element containing 1, 2, 3 block elements. One box containing 3 smaller boxes. That's a div. What spans can do, which are different than divs, is they can actually contain pieces of elements. They can be used to separate pieces of elements. For example, I have here, hello world, my name is Evan, welcome to my site. Let's say that I want to change the color of Evan, just my name. I have Evan, my name is Evan, contained in this paragraph with the class of bold. Well, I could come in here to my CSS, find that selector and change it to tomato. My name is Evan. But now the whole sentence is tomato colored, and I only wanted my name to be tomato colored, so that's not going to work. So what I can do is come in here and separate out Evan by wrapping it in a span. I put the word Evan inside of a span. If this looks visually confusing to you, just break it up. Break it up even more. Now look, that didn't do anything at all to my text. But now I can come in here, select my span, and change the color of the content of that span to tomato. And that one word has changed. Let's also make it uppercase. Okay, let's also give it a background color. All of this is happening only to that one word, that one piece of the larger paragraph element. Now watch what happens if I try to replace that span with a div. Well, Evan has been moved onto a completely new line because divs are, as we know, block elements. taking up all the space. Okay? So spans are very useful for things like that, like bolding a single word, changing the color of a single word, or if you started a new paragraph and you want the very first letter of that paragraph to be a different color. Maybe you also want it to be larger than all the rest. A span is a really good way to do that. Now, for this particular effect, there is in fact a different kind of selector, but I'm not going to get into that. Spans are used pretty much like this. There's very little other use for spans other than separating out individual pieces of text, maybe a single icon. They can be used inside of buttons. They can be used inside of anything that contains text, and that's the advantage of spans. They are naturally inline elements, which means they don't start on a new line. They don't push content ahead of them to a new line. They fit very nicely and neatly inside of other elements and allow you to style pieces of those elements rather than the entire element itself. Okay? Now you might ask, what happens if you've got multiple spans, like we have here, and you want them both to look different? Maybe we want this W to not have the pink background and to be blue. Well, just like any other elements, we can give spans classes or IDs. So now I can change the color of the span with the class of blue. And I can make sure that it has no background. Oops. Okay? That's it. Spans are pretty straightforward. And divs, as we know, are used to divide large sections of a site. They contain whole entire elements, whereas spans contain individual pieces of an element. Spans can be used to divide up content inside of an element. Okay?